Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. And boy, we are loaded with people and topics. And I want to give everybody an overview here that the audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. This show is being broadcast around the world. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com or participate in the chat room. Want to advertise cost efficiently? Give me a call, 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can contact me on Twitter at Tribune South. Our website's www.southfloridatribune.com. And Candy Ebling is a mastermind to go out there and keep it all together. All right. Well, glad that you're on for the moment. Anyways, sorry to say you can't stay. All right. Well, you made your presence felt. There you go. Do what you got to do. And if you stay on later, great. If you don't, well, at least he made his presence felt. All right. With that said, give me an overview of the show. We're going to talk about a couple of major rule changes that are going to go into effect this year, as well as a interesting rivalry game in our neck of the woods in the southern region of the country, and whatever Mel Farr wants to talk about as well. So with that said, introducing the crew right to left, Smoking Jeremy B. Welcome back, Smoking.
Glad to be here.
George Eichhorn, the first of two tonight.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
And Coach Bono, I love having you on, partner.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Pleased to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's okay. The only way people keep me quiet is they end up muting me without my knowledge. But don't anybody ever get any ideas out here, although I think I'm the one in charge of it all. And Travis Holmes, no relation to Sherlock.
Thank you for having me as always. Let's get this thing started. Love a party.
And last but not least, the man carrying the rock for the when I get done, Mel Farr Jr.
Hey, guys.
All right, a few topics I'm going to get to. First and foremost, Coach, this is right up your alley. Rule 16A, playing rule proposal. You talk about the fair catch rule. The receiving team gets the ball at the 25-yard line. The reason is for safety. So what do you think, Coach?
I think, this one's – I agree with everything in play that has to do with player safety, but I don't like this one because I think it's further de-emphasizing the kickoff rule and that play. I think there's other things that we could explore. I think, just watching a little bit of the XFL, what they did with the kickoff, I think there's other alternatives. I don't like the rule. I think there's so many touchbacks right now in the NFL because the kickers are so good. I think that it's further de-emphasizing the play. Personally, as a special teams guy, I can't support it.
Well, you know what? When this rule came out, I knew I was turning to you first to get this bad boy
But
out.
here's the thing that, in '99 they came out with the K-ball, and if we think back, the reason the K-ball got brought into play was there was too many touchbacks and there were too many fair catches. So we're still sending, bring it, FedEx in the balls in the K-balls. We don't do that with the quarterback balls. The officials have, you have 30 minutes to work them in. I think that if they would just eliminate the K, still have the K-ball, but let the kickers have them during the week. Let them break them in. Let the officials, check them before the game, collect them, and then I think it wouldn't be any problem. That's what we do with the quarterback balls. I just think everything that we've done, has really undone that K-ball. I mean, we've moved the spot back up to the 35. They've just done so many things. I agree with all the onside kick stuff, but that's the next thing that will probably go. There'll be, you'll have an option to go for like 4th and 15 or 4th and 20. to see if you can gain another possession. But again, I've talked long enough. I don't like the rule.
That's good. No, hey, listen, if anybody should talk longer, it should be you, because you obviously coach a position. So, what can I say? You're the resident authority on special teams, and I'm giving you a special opportunity to say what you like and don't. And you got an A1 with that. All right, we're going to turn it over to Sherlock. Oh, I meant Travis Holmes.
I would have to echo a lot of what Coach just stated. Like, I think a lot of us fans of the sport don't want to see the minimization of special teams. They don't want to see the kickoffs go away, and the fair catch rule obviously does that to a pretty large extent. But at the same time, I fully understand the NFL had to do something. They had to, at minimum, they had to pretend to care about player safety, even if we know that may not necessarily be true, whatever. They had to make a rule change, and this seemed to just be the one that they had, because apparently they had it on the table back in March, and then they tabled it for a few months. And per my recollection, the night before the meeting, Roger Goodell didn't have the votes for it to pass, and he had to go team by team to whatever it was, 12 or 15 teams, to get them to agree with it. And that's how the vote ended up going that way, because apparently he did not have the votes to get this passed. Special teams coaches were not in favor of it wholesale, so they did approve it for the 1 year rule. And it's quite possible that, maybe next year, after seeing how it does or doesn't, diminish kickoff returns, maybe they'll flip back to it and they won't make it permanent. So we'll see.
All right, let's go to the chat room. Another hello, but this guy's from Washington State. His name is Mickey Delaney. Welcome to the big show, Mickey. Glad to have you. Ken Ballreich. We'll go for the moment. We had him anyways. So we'll take it to the running back. What do you think of the rule, Mel?
I don't like it. You got to understand. There's guys that made their living on special teams. I mean, a guy like Matthew Slater. That's how he made his living, is on special teams. And sometimes that's how you earn your way into a rotational position, is by how you go out there and you play on special teams. And sometimes, that's the difference between making the team and not making the team. And obviously Coach knows more about that than I do, because he's been in those kind of meetings. What value does this particular player give us on special teams versus this other player? That's the difference between making it and not making it. So I think it's a mistake. We know football is a dangerous game. I think there's other things that they could do with that play. As Coach mentioned, what the USFL did on that play, you still have the play. You kick the ball in play where there's a potential run back, and give these guys an opportunity to earn, have a chance to make a roster and earn a living, and obviously realize their dream of becoming a professional football player. So I'm not one that's in favor of it. Yeah, they're saying player safety, but there's a lot of other things that they could be doing as far as player safety is concerned. And I think Matthew Slater had some very nice comments, he had some very poignant comments that he came out with in regards to this rule. Not because that's how he. One of the reasons was because that's how he's made a name for himself, going to the number of Pro Bowls that he's gone to, but also just pointing out things, as far as aftercare when a guy's finished playing, how much health insurance they're allowed to, how long they're allowed to have health insurance, and various things of that nature that he brought up that he would like to see the NFL address, as opposed to something like this where I don't think many people were complaining about it. Is there a high concussion rate in that? Yeah, I know I got concussed on the kickoff return team. So yeah, you got guys running full speed, and it's a collision. It's like going the wrong way in traffic. It's a tough deal. That guy back there is tough. I remember a couple of our guys got hurt. Receivers got hurt. And I remember I was back there with Ron Brown. Ron Brown ran in the Olympics, in the '84 Olympics, I believe it was, in LA. And Coach came up to me and said, "Hey Mel, I need you to be the deep guy on kickoffs." I got a neck roll and all this kind of stuff. We talk about needing a deep guy on kickoffs. So I said, all right, let me get one in. I got it. I started. I ended up catching it like this over my head. I said, okay, I'm good. And Ron was like, okay, Mel, I got everything from your hash mark all the way to my side of the field. I was like, all right, bet. Eddie Murray, we're playing Detroit. Eddie Murray's kicking it. That ball's high, way up there. I hadn't caught kickoffs in forever. It says high school. That ball's way up there. And he's kicking it to me. I'm like, Ron. I'm yelling at him. He just comes over there in front of me and it gets it. But I was scared to death to catch that ball. I didn't want to have nothing to do with it. But guys live for that. Not me. I was always a wedge guy or a guy up in the front. I can do that. But back there running kickoffs, I didn't want to have nothing to do with that.
Well, George, you're really following a couple of people that are in the profession. So what do you have?
Yeah, Scott. Mel's a name dropper, boy. You talk about one of the best kickers in Detroit history, Eddie Murray. Of course, we've covered him and his awesome career. But Mel, I think he hit it right on the head. I mean, this is an exciting play. It's always been an exciting play in the history of football. And to just arbitrarily, and I know, like you said, Travis, that they've been working on this or talking about this for a while. And I hope for one that it is only a 1-year deal. If he had to twist that many arms, the commissioner, to get the votes to get this passed, because I'm telling you guys, and you've seen it too, there's been so many comments negative about this rule change. A lot of coaches, like you said, Coach, and a lot of players, and they're wondering what is going on here. And I agree. Mel's right. I mean, it is, you hear about kamikaze mission, guys going out there on the kickoffs and I fully agree with the safety is very important, but please don't lower the game, like taking it away like this and all these fair catches. Like, we don't have to do everything that college does. And the NFL has not, but this is one I'm sorry, I cannot agree with.
All right, Jeremy, you got the last word on it.
I don't agree with the rule, but in the NFL, you have maybe 5 fair catch kickoffs a year. So that being said, and they're hardly ever outside of the end zone. Right. I've never seen a fair caught kickoff in a modern game since they've been kicking off from the 35. Now, when they were kicking off from the 25, because they'd catch it at the 19 and the coverage team would be right there, you'd see it all the time. Now that they're kicking off from the 35, 90% of those balls hit the end zone. So it's not going to be that big of a deal now with them kicking from the 35, but I still don't agree with the rule, because what if you're doing that squib kick and somebody wants to fair catch it at the 10 and just say, hey, why should I run for 15 yards? I'm getting it for free.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, you won't be able to fair catch a squib kick.
I know, but I'm just saying, they're saying any kickoff, that's a kickoff. That's a caveat to that rule. If they didn't put that in
the college, once the ball hits the ground, though, it can't be fair call.
Okay.
So that will be the one way where coaches will have to guarantee that you return the ball now unless you declare yourself down. Exactly right. But then you won't get the ball at the 25. It'll be at the spot. Mm-hmm. So
okay. I was just making sure of clarity on that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of
the reason the colleges did it was because you don't have the quality of kickers in college that can consistently bang the ball out the back of the end zone, where 90% of the NFL guys can kick it out of the end zone, and the only time you get an opportunity to return is if it's a windy day and they're kicking off into the wind, or they just miss hit one, because the number of actual returns now in the NFL has gone way down. So you're going to take the returnable kicks now that can be fair caught. I mean, it's gonna it'll be interesting. I'm willing to, there's going to be a lot less returns, a tremendous amount of less returns.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say about this before we go on to our next subject, okay, is many, many years ago, we had instant replay that kept voting it in and out until they finally settled on it. I have a feeling there's a lot more that'll take place with this rule change, whether it's tweaks or not, in order to do it. But I guess they owe it to themselves to see what this looks like, and then who knows what tweaks will come away. I would assume, right, Coach? I mean, sometimes you have to see something in action. Most
of these rules, though, a lot of these rules have gone in with like a trial basis.
Exactly.
They've always ended up sticking. They might they might tweak it, but I can't think of an example where they said, "Oh, we'll try it 1 year on a trial basis," and then they canned it the next year. It's most always,
the review of pass interference.
yeah. All right.
The review
That's
of
the
pass
one they
interference,
can't.
and that was a recent example. So that was a good call out, Jeremy. And also you
really
have
good.
the you have the both teams get the ball thing when they did that in the playoff. They did it in the preseason, got rid of it, and then they did it for the playoffs, but they never put it into the regular season. So that was also a trial run.
All right, back to the chat room real quick. Mickey Delaney says I would leave it alone. So, well, evidently, Mick, they're really not doing it yet. We'll see what happens at the end of the year. But, I'll just say this, Coach, you're right. They try it out, and in most cases they usually stick. So, I'm with you all the way, Coach, on this one. All right, let's go to another rule change. This one is Proposal 1A, that each club has an hour and a half before kickoff on an active list, notifying referees of the players on its inactive list for that game. Each club may also designate one emergency quarterback from its 53-player active and inactive list. So, but that said, okay, Jeremy, I'll start around a different way. What are your thoughts about the emergency quarterback?
Well, seeing how that was proposed by our own owner of the Detroit Lions, sheilafordhemp, and what it actually is giving is a 54th roster spot. Because the third quarterback, the emergency quarterback, is just in case your starter gets hurt and you go down, you automatically will have a backup on the roster. It does not count towards the 53. It also does not count against the salary cap. But that isn't saying you can go out there and get a starting caliber quarterback to make him your third emergency either. They're just protecting you so that you have that on the team instead of having to stick somebody on the practice squad that's halfway decent and worry about another team pilfering them away.
George?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this one. I think it's very important because of the fact that, as we know, there have been so many injuries to the quarterbacks. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be because of the protection rules that the NFL has initiated to protect the quarterbacks. But yeah, I like it. You got to have somebody available. Number 3. It's like in baseball, and Scott, you were a former catcher. I know, when you're down and you're managing baseball, I mean, to a certain extent, it's similar is what I'm saying. You got to make sure you don't lose both catchers, but especially football. I mean, come on, that's the most premier position. That's the position you need to protect most. And I think having that emergency status is a good move, and hats off to Sheila and the Lions for initiating this one.
Well, before I turn over to Mel, when I was a catcher, or the way I became a catcher, Coach, ready for this? Our 2 catchers didn't show up, and my dad at that time was managing the team. I raised my hand so loud, I'm surprised I didn't dislocate my young shoulder. That's how bad. I was awful everywhere else. So where are you going to find a place for me? The coach's son or manager's son? Where are we going to? And I wanted that. And you know what? I actually liked the position because I kept my concentration. I would warm up pitchers between innings. And, I got news for you. I really enjoy being so active that when these 2 catchers on their jobs back, my dad said, "We're finding you another position." He's staying there. That's the only position he can play. Of course, I was slow. I knew how to bunt, never hit a home run. But, I found a way to move the ball around, but I was known for my defensive ability. So, yeah, once I got that job, we didn't need no emergency catcher. I worked too hard to find a position. But, Coach, I only mentioned it because you haven't heard this one yet, so I have to tell you. But no, I don't give that thing away. But the emergency quarterback, I get it. All right, Mel, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you look at what happened last year in the NFC Championship game. It affects the play of the game. There's been a few times. I remember when Brian Mitchell had to go in. This was a long time ago with the Washington Redskins and had to play the quarterback position because their quarterbacks got hurt. And when you're trying to, this goes back again, when you're trying to maximize those roster positions, a guy that, the more you can do, a guy like they have at the Swiss Army knife down there in New Orleans, Taysomhill, he can do more things than just play quarterback. So he can be your emergency quarterback, and he also can go down there and play special teams, play tight end, play running back, wildcat quarterback. There's more that he can do. So I think it's, just because obviously the NFL is worried about their game. And it's the game that they're concerned about, the quality of their game. This is entertainment. Nobody wants to watch what's his name? McCaffrey play quarterback. They don't want to watch him play quarterback in the NFC Championship game. You got a whole lot of eyeballs on that game. The last thing they want to do is watch Christian McCaffrey play quarterback. They want to see a quarterback play quarterback. And even, and with the salary caps, the one thing I can say is that some of these backup quarterbacks, I mean, the second string, and maybe it's not just the second string, but I mean, in the Rams, I don't know what quarterback they were down to, but that guy was terrible. I mean, just god awful. And it was hard to watch. Sometimes football gets hard to watch. So you want to make sure, I'm sure the NFL wants to make sure they have a product that's pleasing to the eye, that people will want to stay tuned and watch to the end. And I think it's good that they finally made a decision to have that emergency quarterback.
The only thing before I turn it over to Travis, and Coach, you probably know this name. My all-time favorite emergency quarterback was Jim Jensen of the Miami Dolphins. Remember him, Coach?
I would be lying if I said I did. I apologize.
Oh, no, you don't have to. I covered the Dolphins back in the 80s. And let me tell you something. Jim Jensen was their late-round pick, and I'll tell you, he made the team out of training camp because donshula was so impressed with him. But, all right, go ahead, Travis.
I don't have a lot to add. I mean, this intelligent group of gentlemen have exhausted everything that I wanted to say. It's all about the quality of the game. It's all about the money, man. You mess with the money, rules have to be changed. That is the way the NFL works since forever. So, hey, you got an NFC Championship game. You have a running back playing quarterback. You have a wide receiver playing quarterback at one point for the Denver Broncos. And then they had Hinton also play in that same game where he got injured. You have probably 4 to 5 different examples on either Thursday Night Football, like in prime time situations where all the eyes are on the league and they essentially with their own rules crap the bed. I mean, they put these teams behind in positions where they had to make some really difficult roster decisions that resulted in an unwatchable football game. And that's not even adding in the whole gambling aspect, because the NFL loves gambling, even though they don't talk about it. Wink, wink. So yeah. I mean, come on. This was a blatant and obvious rule that we just knew had to be changed after, at the pinnacle of the playoffs, when you're talking the championship games and you just don't have the best players on the field. Come on. So good rule change, all for the wrong reasons, but you had to do it. So good stuff.
All right, Coach Bono, you got the final say on this one more time.
Yeah, a lot of really great points. I think it's a good rule. I think what happens too is what this enables people to do, especially when you get into the season. It's not just the quarterback position. You could have that. You're safe in knowing that you have an emergency quarterback, but maybe your O-line's beat up and you really want to dress an offensive lineman. Because, when injuries happen, especially on game day, there's so few players on the sideline, really. You think about it. I remember when I first got in the league, when I was interviewing with Tom Coughlin, Coach Coughlin said, Johnny said, there are more parallels within the NFL to high school football than there are to college football. And I didn't understand what he meant by that at the time. But then, after training camp, when the roster gets cut down, and then on game day, looking around, if you lose a starter at any possession, it's going to affect the game, obviously, and it's going to affect the rotation. So, again, nothing really to add. A lot of great points. I think it's a great rule.
Okay, and my last topic before I turn it over to Mel, I'm sure he's got a couple good ones. Just so you know, this show will run until approximately 8:55. Following our broadcast here, we have 108 Stitches baseball talk. So with that said, my final topic will be Georgia versus Florida. Been played in Jacksonville since 1933. Well, Coach, welcome to Florida. Now you get to be a part of watching this thing right within an hour away from where you live. What are your thoughts about the fact that, I know that it's inevitable at some point, this game will have to be moved to each area's hometown when they go ahead and play it when TIAA gets remodeled. But, what are your thoughts about the Georgia-Florida game being played in Jacksonville, Coach?
Well, it's a tradition. Look, I've got a gator in my house, right? My wife was went to, her dad was a bull gator, went to law school at Florida, and she grew up with Gator football. So, I mean, that's a huge game. I'm waiting for it to be a competitive game. I mean, Georgia's pretty doggone good, and I don't see them going away anytime soon.
No, you're right. Georgia's been more than pretty good. A couple of national titles in their pocket. They're breeding out NFL players, and they're landing in Philadelphia like there's no end to it, among other places.
It isn't Philadelphia anymore. It's UGA North.
Exactly. That's my point. All right. So with that said, all right, Travis, it's in your neck of the woods. Coach got his opinion. Now you get yours.
I mean, it is a tradition like many college traditions, and you never want to mess with the tradition. You never want to rock the boat. I think the schools probably would have their own opinion on that. I do question that piece. I mean, Georgia would love to have that game played at their home field, and I think Florida's kind of mentioned that when we going back to different negotiations. So there's some conversation there, but nevertheless, it is tradition. You generally don't want to mess with that. Now, there are some questions about what's going to happen after those renovations do take place, because it's only a 2-year extension, and then you have 2 years of the Jaguars doing their renovations, and then there's what? Like that lines up time. That timeline matches up perfectly to say, what are we going to do now? And it just so happens to line up with the Jaguars actually having a good team. So maybe the people in Jacksonville may not care as much, even though that is a Gator town. It's going to be some interesting, some interesting happenings in that 2025, 2026 time frame for sure.
Okay, Mel.
I mean, obviously with the stadium going on, having renovations, I mean, they had to have somewhere to play it, and being a home and home, I think that'll be good for the fans, the home fans that have an opportunity to play that game, in backyard, to really so somebody can have a home field advantage. But other than that, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I don't like Georgia too much, and don't particularly care for Florida a whole heck of a lot either. So it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't much matter to me. They could play it wherever they want. They could play it at a high school for all I care. But it's good football. Obviously, Georgia's good football. But again, I don't really care for Georgia too much, even though I do live here in Alabama. I mean, I live here in Georgia rather than Atlanta. So
in Alabama, he's asking to get shot at tonight. Saying that in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm a Nick Saban fan, so
I kind of figured.
Yeah. So
you know what? The only rivalry that Mel cares about is USC and UCLA, right? That's it.
That's it. Well, Michigan, Ohio State. I like to see Ohio State win, Michigan State. But I like Harbaugh. I like Jim Harbaugh. I do like Jim Harbaugh. But when Michigan State and Michigan play, I'm a Michigan State.
There we go. That's a rivalry.
There you go. All right, but the bottom line is, Mel, if I'm understanding you correctly, you really don't frankly care if this game was being played in Iceland, do you?
I could care less where they play this game at.
Okay, good enough. Man. All right, George. I know you're not familiar with these parts.
Well, yeah, I'm very much a proponent of keeping those games on the college campus. We had a situation recently in Michigan where the Spartans have announced they're moving the game from the home campus to the Ford Field in Detroit the day after Thanksgiving because NBC waived a bunch of money in front of them. And let me tell you, there's a lot of business owners, alumni, and fans in East Lansing that are not happy. So again, I'm comparing two different situations here, but the bottom line is for me, I still like to see the campus towns host these games. It's a tradition, and and yes, thank you Jacksonville for coming to the rescue. Though I mean, like you said, their stadium renovations are going on, so that necessitated it. But I still would like to see those kind of big games remain on campus.
Okay, Jeremy.
Well, I kind of agree with Mel. The Georgia Eagles have no reason to be playing the Florida Gators. I mean, a professional team versus a college team. That's just not fair.
Okay.
And Ken, who's this guy Ken?
That's Smoking Dad.
Yeah, I know.
Dad.
Oh, that's Dad. Okay, yeah. Okay, Dad. All right, I got you.
Your dad doesn't have much use for.
No, we're Michigan men. We like Michigan and anybody who plays Ohio State. Sorry, Mel.
Oh man.
Okay.
I like
All right.
Harbaugh. I do like Harbaugh. And look here, between
Right.
Michigan and Ohio State, I said Ohio State. I can't stand Ohio State. I don't. I'll be
All right,
honest.
well, you know what?
I'm a Michigan State fan myself.
I know.
I mean, I'm a
we could
UCF
debate this
fan.
all day long, but we won't. All right, Mel, you got a couple topics, throw them our way.
So, just in the last night, I think the news broke about, again, and we talked about this before. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with these young players and gambling. And if what's been alleged is true in regards to this young man, it could be very serious. I mean, not only did he bet on games, but he bet on games that he played in, and the team that he played for. I don't understand. I'm trying to, maybe somebody, maybe Travis, maybe you can help me out. I don't understand what the allure is of this, of gambling. And he was, for the most part, he was betting, $50, $100 or something like that. But I guess he was doing it through an associate, but he was still betting on games, and not just NFL games, but games that he was participating in, his own team. I don't understand, so, we already had last year, you had a guy who was suspended for the year, who's down there in Jacksonville right now, that came from the University of Alabama. Calvin Ridley. Right.
The hypocrisy of that is too funny, though.
So you had one guy who was suspended for the whole year. Then early this season, now, obviously he didn't do anything after these guys did it. He was doing his stuff at the same time. But I mean, what they did to Calvin Ridley, I mean, that was very harsh. That was a very harsh penalty that he received. I don't understand what it is. What's the allure? What's the attraction? One thing about me is I don't even like going to Las Vegas. I mean, I like going to Las Vegas, but I really don't like betting. I'm at the little $10 tables. I don't like my money at risk. I don't understand because every time I go to Las Vegas, there's always construction going on. And there's not construction going on in Vegas because the house is losing. There's construction going on out there because the house is winning. You can't beat the house. I don't understand what it is with the allure in young people. And I think it's something that we really, because I know one of my daughter's friends, he's a little young guy, and he's just fresh out of college, and he likes to bet using that little app or whatever. What is the allure with young people in betting, period, especially these young football players when you have so much at risk? I mean, why? I mean, what's the end game? Why risk? This guy had a $3 million contract. Why risk that kind of money to wager $50 to $100 on a game? What do you think, Jeremy B?
Oh, I'm so glad you started with me. I just wrote an article about this subject. And 4 out of the 5 players that didn't do the betting on their own teams, they didn't even know that they couldn't bet on NFL properties, which I found out
I find that very difficult to believe.
And I also found out by reading into it, that includes when you are away and in the hotel room that the NFL pays for the team, that is considered NFL property. So if you are an away team, anything on the practice facility, anything in your hotel room, you cannot do it. I'm just saying the young guys. I'm not saying the vets. Isaiah Rodgers is a 3-year vet. And that's the guy you're talking in question that wrote his formal apology on Twitter, where he apologized to his coaches, his players, his teammates, and everything else. But how can you bet on this sport when there's been so many that have already been indefinite minimum 1-year suspensions that have been handed out? Calvin Ridley over a year ago. Then you had Quintus Cephas and CJ Moore from the Lions that had that harsh penalty handed down. My solution, and I really hope that Goodell reads our paper, because I said what they could do is make all these guys that have that indefinite with a 1-year minimum, if they want to reinstate themselves to the league, give the rookie symposium the following year before they're able to take the field.
Interesting.
Just to show them the harsh effects of gambling.
Coach, you're not that far removed from being in a locker room, being in that training camp setting when they have all the people come in there from the league and they discuss all the things that you can do, you can't do, be careful with this, be careful with that. And then again, they do have the rookie symposium as well, where they go through all these things. I heard the excuse that the player from Detroit gave that he didn't know. Do you find that credible?
No, not at all. I don't think you can't not know. And furthermore, it's your job to know. But I think the league does a very good job with that. I mean, there's mandatory signage, right, in locker rooms that, there's signs posted throughout the facilities. Don't bet on it. The same thing in college football. And it really comes down to, I mean, we can all point to, there's hundreds of examples of people doing things that they're not supposed to do, whether it's, getting behind the wheel of a car, using somebody else's credentials to do, credit card, whatever. But the reason the gambling deal is such a big deal is because you're talking about the integrity of the game, and if the league and the NCAA, if they don't take that very seriously, if they don't come down on the players, which they always have, then what does the common fan think when he's watching a game and things, and one of those wacky things that happens every week in a game, it's like, the fix was on. And so, it has to be taken very seriously. It always has been taken very seriously. It's always been emphasized. And, I'm sorry, I don't know. It doesn't cut it as, doesn't cut it at all.
All right, let me read one comment out of the chat room coming from Steve Bauer. I don't understand either. Mel, the guys make great money, and why do they have to get? Yeah, you know what, Steve, I couldn't agree more. I'm sure the panel definitely probably feels you there too. Go ahead, Mel.
With the NIL now, with college players, there's not so much as an enticement anymore from gamblers. When people get in situations, you had the Black Sox from a long time ago when players weren't making a whole lot of money. There could be that enticement to get involved in something like this. You remember the league came down very heavily on Alex Karras and Paul Hornung when they were involved in gambling back in the 60s. You talk about you talk about the integrity of the game. I remember being in the locker room at UCLA, and we had this athletic trainer, and he would talk about the referees control the NBA game. And he said, watch. He would tell me who's going to win. He said, just watch the referee. And we play in little basketball games. We play in little charity basketball games when I was with the Rams. And you go around, and Michael Cooper was reffing one time, and we were getting beat. We were getting blown out by this one particular team, man. And he said, hey, here, watch, I got you. And all of a sudden, every whistle started going our way, and then we ended up winning the game. So the players. There's a lot of different places where the integrity of the game can be affected. Players should definitely not be one. We know we had that incident with the one NBA official where I guess he was
Tim Donahue.
Yes, had some things going on, but there's a lot of other ways to have an effect on the game. The players should definitely not be one. The one thing you might have to worry about the referees, and that's what they talk about a lot of times. Guy just all of a sudden swallows his whistle. Why? What happens? Or all of a sudden he gets a little whistle happy. What's going on with him? So Travis, what do you think is the allure with these young players? I mean, I thought these guys were like in the PS5 and just playing their games and stuff like that, not just wanting to get on the phone and just lose their money, potentially lose their livelihood because, look, I mean, if this guy bet on his own games, I mean, there has to be serious consequences for this player. What do you think?
I mean, there absolutely is going to be serious consequences, but as far as the young players are concerned, I think I want to attack this from a different angle than what I've heard so far. It's just because we're people. We're all six of us in this room right now, plus everybody in the chat. Hey, everyone. We're all different. We all have different ways that we've grown up. We all have different life experiences. We all view this thing differently, right? We have to slice it in a different way. And so this guy is making, what do you say, $3 million a year, 3-year veteran, right? In NFL terms, that's not a lot of money. Like, can we be real about that? Like, not speaking privately, but in NFL terms, that is not a lot of money. Hyperbaric chamber, healing, that may cost $400,000, $500,000 a year just by itself. You're talking, you got trainers that actually, you might hire them to help you out on the side. That may be another $100,000. You have your agent who's taking a piece of 3% of the cut. And this is a guy who has 2 kids, his girlfriend, he's not even married. So, I don't know what that situation as far as if there's any alimony or child support there. Come on, man. You got family that's asking for a handout here and there. Maybe you're close with your friends. There's a billion ways to slice this. Why these young players who recently just came into just a little bit of money might want to get that extra edge. Like, I can see that. I'm not saying that's what they should be doing, but I can absolutely see it from that perspective, how that could be happening. Now, unfortunately, the NFL, they're going to have to, lay the hammer down on him because, yeah, man, you get caught speeding going 7 over, they're going to throw the book at you, and whether it's 7 or whether it's 100, it is what it is. Like, and he was that guy that was absolutely going 100 miles over the speed limit, and unfortunately, he's going to absolutely need to pay for that because the games they have to set an example. But as far as the reasons, there's a billion reasons because we all got a life, we all got family, man, we all got demons in our closet. It could be something as simple as that.
George?
Yeah, Travis stole my thunder. I mean, there's a culture. There's a culture that these young men grow up in. And our culture, it might be different than their culture. And without getting too deep into it, what Travis said is so true. I mean, you probably heard, Mel, that 2 Cleveland Brown players were out till 3:30 in the morning, and they were mugged. And a car was stolen and jewelry was taken. I mean, and that's not their fault. I'm not faulting somebody for being out at that late at night, but the situation with the gambling is exactly how I think you're spot on, Travis. There's so many things going on in their life. And to us, to me, a writer or a broadcaster or whatever, I mean, that's a lot of money, that contract. But to them, like you said, there are certain situations that they're facing in life. But again, no excuse. Like you said, Coach, there should be no reason why they did not know these things. They were told about this in the rookie orientation, or when the league comes around in training camp, and all the leagues go through this type of situation. But, unfortunately, there's going to be some that try to stretch it and try to take advantage of these rules. And it's sad. It's sad that he would risk his career or risk his livelihood, or any player, for a situation such as gambling. And Pete Rose paid the ultimate price. And I'm sorry, some of these young people today are facing the same dilemma.
Yep. So this week there's some conversation. Well, there's been some talk about the Chicago Bears and their quarterback. He's finally has an opportunity to have the same offensive coordinator, I think, that he had last year. The first year he came in, he had that. He had that disaster. And then Nagy, and they come in, they get a new coach. Obviously, has a new coordinator, has to learn a new offense. What do you think the likelihood is of him having the same type of improvement that Jalen Hurts had from year 2 to year 3? I mean, do you see that? I mean, we know the kid's got talent. He's more talented, I believe, than Jalen. Coming out of college, I think he was a much better thrower of the football. Obviously, he's a little bit faster. But, the big thing, and Coach can tell you this a lot, the big thing that makes you successful in the NFL, especially when you're a high draft pick, is the organization that you go to and the organizational structure that you have around me. If you don't have a good organization, if there's not a good organizational structure around you, for the most part, it doesn't matter who you are. It's going to be very, very difficult for you to succeed. Tom Brady fell into the right type of situation. There's a lot of guys that fall into the right type of situations, a lot of talented guys that fall into the worst situations, and they're never able to recover from it. Like David Carr, he went to a terrible situation. He got beat up, man, and, he's gun shy. Very talented guy, put up big numbers in college, but went to the wrong situation. So what do you think the likelihood is that we'll see that type of improvement? I can't think of the quarterback's name right now. The quarterback, Justin Fields. Thank you, Justin Fields. Do you think that we'll see that kind of jump in his play, Jeremy?
If he learns to read defenses better, yes. The thing is last year, if you watched, even though he looked better than he did the year before, he could have wide open receivers downfield, and instead of hitting them or checking down to the guy that was open in the flat, he would run. That's a big issue to me. And I'm not speaking as a Lions fan. I'm speaking as an NFL fan and a guy that is a student of the game and loves watching it and love breaking down film. He needs to learn how to do that bad. I mean, if you got a guy that's wide open with 15 yards of separation, past safeties, 40 yards down the field, and you got a 60-yard arm and you won't throw it to him, there's an issue.
Well, I think a lot of the young players don't have a problem with the deep ball, throwing the deep ball. I think it's throwing the timing routes that they have a problem with. Open in the NFL is not open like it is in college. Guys aren't running wide open. Open is just having a guy on your back and being able to place the ball in a position where you throw a guy open. I can remember, many times listen to Ernie Zampese talk about that. I mean, open in the NFL is different than open in college. Guys aren't running around wide open. Guess what? That guy over there is getting a paycheck just like you're getting a paycheck. And he wants to make sure he continues to get his paycheck. You have to throw guys open. And that was one of the things that really bothered me with Jalen when he was in college. I always rooted for him, from the time he was a freshman when he was playing. Guys just tend to hold on to the ball too long because open, it's not wide open. Open is, if the guy's behind you and you put the ball here, you can make that throw now. And I've seen Jalen make that type of improvement. And I'll be interested to see if Justin can make that kind of improvement. Sometimes you just got to let the ball fly. What do you think, George?
I think that, and I know Scott and I have talked about this a lot too, with the quarterbacks that have to go through so many changes, so many coaches, so many quarterbacks, coaches, so many coordinators are at a disadvantage. So I think on the presence alone that he's coming back to somebody he's at least familiar with. And don't get me wrong, we know every season, and Coach, you can verify this, tweaks are made obviously to game plans and to the playbooks. And Mel, you've played the game. But as far as Jordan goes, hey, listen, this kid's got a lot of raw potential still. He does. He is multidimensional. I like what he has to offer. He is not surrounded like Goff is in Detroit with a lot of good experienced weapons. And it's only going to be a matter of time before Chicago, you would think, would get that supporting cast that he needs. But no, I'm still high on him. And I think that's to his advantage that, yeah, he's going to be more familiar than he was coming into, say, the beginning of last season.
I think one of the things that we do now in the world we live in now is we give up on guys too quick. I mean, we're so quick to think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence and want to try to bring somebody else in. I mean, there was talk this year was Chicago going to draft a quarterback with the pick that they had early in the first round. And I'm like, man, you just, spend all this capital on this guy here. Why would you even be thinking about it? Why not, develop this guy here? I mean, it's the same thing like, in a marriage. I mean, you're looking over there and thinking the grass is green over there. If you just water and fertilize and cultivate your grass, your marriage might end up being pretty good. As opposed to not knowing exactly, you're going to leave 80 to go get 20. And that's not what you want to do. You keep the 80 here and let somebody else deal with that 20. And Coach, you know this because you've been around the game for a long time. They don't really give the players the opportunity to develop the way that they used to, and probably because of the money that's involved now. These guys get so much money that you have to get them in there right away, and they need to experience success right away. And confidence, as is a big part of this game. And, you get confidence from repeatedly doing something over and over again, but also from repeatedly doing something and being successful. And that confidence is kind of it's a fine little line. It's very, very fine little line. I mean, it can be broken. And once it's broken, it takes a long time to get back. So how do you see, do you think, since you've been closer to the game than a lot of us, how do you see, what Justin Fields, the type of ability and talent that he has? And what do you think? Do you think we'll see that large leap in his play?
I think you'll see a leap. I think, I think he'll definitely be better. I don't know how many times he turned it over last year, but that's always a big thing. That's one of the top ways to me. I think you evaluate a quarterback. I mean, obviously he's extremely elusive. He can create plays with his legs. If he can, transition to maybe instead of taking off running and using that talent to extend plays and locate and find receivers downfield, which as I think, watching Hurts, that's, I think, one of the areas he has gotten so much better at is, extending plays, locating the receivers downfield, and has done a really good job, in my opinion, of taking care of the football, not giving it away. And I think if Justin can just do those things, and obviously being in the same system, hearing the same, terminology, the same, having the same coaches, I think that can only help him.
Travis, did I get your take on this already?
Nope. This is a hard one because that jump that the quarterback for Philadelphia, goodness gracious, I'm drawing a blank for a moment. Thank you. Yeah. That jump wasn't even expected by Philadelphia Eagles, right? Like they were in the trade talks for Russell Wilson. That, like, we now know that, so that wasn't even expected from them. So should that be expected of Justin Fields? No. I don't think that will be a reasonable expectation. I also don't think that they need to have that kind of a jump from him. Frankly, they need average to above average. The way that they're building that team, basically they're building it from the defense and from the running game. They added Donta Freeman and Herbert from Chicago. They have Herbert and they added Donta Freeman from Carolina. My apologies. And they're not necessarily building it on the backs of this crazy speedy receiver core after they traded from the Pittsburgh receiver Chase Claypool, and he's a great blocker also, especially out of the slot, right? Like they're building this to be a running team, maybe run a lot of read option, and ever so often have that vertical passing game. Do we need that? That they're not this high flying Philadelphia Eagles team that is built back to front whole entire defense. There's just this superstar Pro Bowl team across the board. They're not that. And they don't have to be that. So we also, because that supporting cast isn't equal to what the Philadelphia Eagles have, we really can't expect that kind of a jump. But can we expect them to be of just slightly below average quarterback to being a slightly above average quarterback? Oh, absolutely. And I think that can make them a above 500 team in and of itself, if he can just make that sort of progression.
They always say, they talk about the players, the skill players that they have around the quarterback, like a Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts. The quarterback can make the skill players. I don't know that a skill player can necessarily make a quarterback, because the quarterback, the skill player is dependent. The wide receiver is dependent upon the quarterback.
Agreed.
And I think the biggest thing that you have to do when you have a young quarterback is you got to have a good running game. You run the football and play defense, control the line of scrimmage. That way you limit the opportunities for them to have to turn the ball over. Now, are you passing on obvious passing downs? Probably so, but that's okay. But you're going to have a limited, but it's going to be short and it's going to be third and manageable, where it could be a play action, or you could decide to run the ball. Where it's something more than just the quarterback dropping back there and just having to read the entire field and decide where he's going to go with the ball. So I'm not really big, because I believe that, as great as an athlete as Michael Vick was, I believe he had some skilled players around him, but Michael Vick didn't see the field well enough and to be able to be a great thrower of the football. So I think the best thing that you can do for a young quarterback, get a good offensive line, get a good and commit to running the football, which obviously Philadelphia did. They committed to running the football. But I'm not saying have your running back be the primary your quarterback being the primary ball carrier. Run the football, mix it up a little bit if you want to do some boots and so forth and so on, and give him an opportunity to develop into that position and become more efficient at throwing the ball. Scott, I'll throw it back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mel. Well done, guys. Appreciate everything. Patty Grimes, to answer your question, what's up with, is Goff our guy now? According to Dan Campbell, it certainly seems that way.
He is for this year at least.
Yeah, right. Okay, with that said, obviously 108 Stitches Baseball Talk follows us. So well done, Mel, and everybody else. So with that said, Jeremy, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Well, I've renamed my show. It is now Kneecap Biting with the Detroit Lions. I am Smoking Jeremy B, but I go by Jeremy Ballrick because that's my author name. So you can find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading with a list of great authors like Scott Morganroth and George Eichhorn here. Hey, look, they're both on each side of me. That being said, you can also find me on the South Florida Tribune channel on YouTube. You can find me on my channel. You can find me on Sideline Sports. You can find me on Let's Talk Sports. You can find me on Twitter at Smoking Jeremy B. I'm everywhere.
All right, Coach. Why don't you let everybody know how they can go ahead and get a hold of you?
You can't.
That's good enough. You know what? Here, I'll preface it. You want to get a hold of Coach? You come through us. We'll take care of it. How's that? All right.
There you go.
All
You
right.
can find him right here.
Coach, you know what? If you want to find Coach, you follow him here on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. So all right. With that said, Travis, Sherlock Holmes, everybody got to have a name. We're going to give you Sherlock. Go ahead, pal.
I'll take it. You want to call me an intelligent football analyst?
Exactly.
I'm here for it. Hey, you can find me here as long as you're willing to have me. You can find me on Inside the Pigskin with South Florida Tribune. You can find me up with A7B in sports. I cover the Jaguars when we're in the season. You can find me on BigCatCountry.com. I am the news contributor there also. Find me on Twitter at TravLightsBacon. Don't judge. I'm finally losing this weight. I appreciate the support from everyone, and you can find me on Facebook, Travis Holmes. I do appreciate you guys having me again.
Travis, you're not going anywhere, so deal with it. You just come every other week. That's all. That's that. Okay. Bacon, hamburger, fries, whatever. You're coming back every other week. Whatever.
Oh, come on, man! I haven't eaten yet.
Well, okay. Well,
bacon makes everything better. Wrapped around meatloaf is amazing.
All right, Mel, and then we'll end with George, and then myself. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can be found on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. That's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Also, follow what we have going on for the young people, for the youth here in Georgia, and also up in Michigan at melfarr.org.
And last but not least, George.
Author of Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, featuring, do I dare say it, Matt Miller?
Go ahead.
Oh,
all right.
Well, he was a broadcaster before he tried his hand.
All right, forget it, George.
He was a good broadcaster.
He was a great broadcaster.
You can reach me at the Motor City
Nobody
Tribune.
listened to him after.
You can reach me at Motor City Tribune and also gicorn@yahoo.com. The book's available. There's a link at the end of my column. And you can see me on 108 Stitches and the football show and wherever Scott needs me, the Sports Exchange. Glad to be part of the show. Thank you.
We got a new name for Jeremy. Jovial Jeremy. All right, good enough. Okay. But that said, I should point out that the audio version of Inside the Pigskin, no, you're not losing that twice in one night. The audio version of Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. This show is being broadcast around the world. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Send topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. My Twitter information is at Tribune South. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. And once again, Candy Ebling does a whale of a job making sure everything's out there. Great show. Want to thank everybody in the chat room for their participation. So with that said, on behalf of Jeremy Ballreich, George Eichhorn, Mel Farr Jr., Travis Holmes, and Coach Bono, this is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. And one other programming note, Coach Bono will be joining me on No Limits next Thursday night as he has a special story to tell you that will be very motivating, inspiring. So he'll be on No Limits next Thursday, and we'll have somebody else in his place for 1 week. But this is a story you have to hear, so put it on your calendar next Thursday in prime time around 8:15, 8:30. Coach Bono. There you go, Coach. You and I are going to be in prime time, just two of us. All right. With that said, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you on the next edition of Inside the Pigskin.